And greetings, everybody. Keith here. Hoping everybody's having a good day, enjoying life, living life, and loving life. Want to remind everybody, hit that like, share, and subscribe button for me, if you would. There's a PayPal link down there for anybody that wants to share some love. Always appreciated. And, of course, the StreamYard link is there for anybody that wants to join the panel. And we're going to talk about employees, juries, and sureties tonight, the tailored grammar. And you guys know me, I get into the etymology and everything. And what we're really talking about there, when we say tailored grammar and etymology, we're talking about linguistic forensics. And so I'm going to go over that first from Wikipedia before we get into the employees, juries, and sureties. Just so I can put an import on the reason I go to the words. And again, it's scriptural to rightly divide the word of truth. And when we look at the forensic linguistics, I said linguistic forensics, but it's still the same thing. Forensic linguistics, legal linguistics, or language and the law is the application of linguistic knowledge, methods, and insights to the forensic context of law, language, crime investigation, trial, and judicial procedure. It is a branch of applied linguistics, which is an interdisciplinary field which identifies, investigates, and offers solutions to language-related real-life problems. The real-life problems related to lingua franca, as we've discussed before, which is the merger of two languages for people that don't have the same language or a national language. These are principally three areas of application for linguistics working in forensic context. Understanding language of the written law. Understanding language use in forensic and judicial processes, and the provision of linguistic evidence. And you'll remember here not too long ago, I pointed out in 15 U.S.C. 4724, the title of which it says trade shows. In there is a definition that says United States business means United States citizen. Then it goes on to tell about other things like corporations and LLCs and partnerships and this and that in further definition. So we see a linguistic gymnastics going on as far as legalese. And that's what we're pointing out. Because when we get down to the provision of linguistic evidence, we have to show that when it says United States business means a United States citizen. Therefore, in logic and reason, the linguistic evidence as already provided and correlating to plain writing in English would equate to the same thing as a United States citizen means a United States business. Linguistically evidenced. The discipline of forensic linguistics is not homogeneous. It involves a range of experts and researchers in different areas and areas of the field. So like it says up here, forensic linguistics, legal linguistics, or language in the law is the application of linguistic knowledge, methods, and insights to the forensic context of law, language, crime investigation, trial, and judicial procedure. These are all different forums, different venues. So they all use their own different legalese, linguistic gymnastic language, grammar. History. The term forensic linguistics first appeared in 1968 when Jan Svardik, a Swedish professor of linguistics, used it in the Evans Statements, a case for forensic linguistics, an analysis of the statements by Timothy John Evans. It was in regard to reanalyzing the statements given to police at Notting Hill Police Station, England, in the case of an alleged murder by Evans in 1949. Evans was suspected of murdering his wife and baby, and he was tried and hanged for the crime. Yet, when Svartvik studied the statements allegedly given by Evans, he found that there were different stylistic markers involved. See, a man's intellect is limited and biased by his vocabulary. This is what we talk about when you have a different accent. A lot of people can tell if you're from Boston if you don't know how to say car and instead you say ba or ka. It's the hard R and the soft R. And we'll be doing a stream on that here one of these days too, as it relates to roticity. But to continue on here, it says, and Evans did not actually give the statements to the police officers as had been stated at trial. Oops. Suppose I ought to go back to my reading here. My apologies, folks. Sparked by this case, forensic linguistics in the UK at the time were focused on questioning the validity of police interrogations. See, this has been going on a long time. And as you'll see, this is why we have the Miranda rights. But even in the Miranda rights, I'm going to point something out that most people will miss. And again, it goes to linguistic forensics, the linguistic grammar, the tailored grammar, and the different venues, and the language that you should be using in those different venues. Goes on, it says, as seen in numerous famous cases, the conviction of Derek Bentley, the Guildford 4, and Bridgewater 3, many of the major concerns were the statements police officers used. Numerous times the topic of police register came up. The type of stylist language and vocabulary used by members of the law enforcement were transcribing witness statements. Okay? And this is why I said, when they asked me to identify myself, I can't give them the ID because the individual's name and number identify the record. So if I give them linguistics that are outside of their grammar and they convert them through their transcription of a given name and a family name or surname to a first and last name, and the day I say I think I was born on to a birth date, that is their onus probandi. That is on them. I didn't do that. That's their linguistic gymnastics. Their tailored grammar, not mine. In the U.S., forensic linguistics can be traced back as early as 1927 to a ransom note in Corning, New York. The Associated Press reported Duncan McClure of Johnson City, uncle of the kidnapped girl, is the only member of the family to spell his name McClure instead of McClure. The letter he received, supposedly from the kidnappers, was addressed to him by the proper name, indicating that the writer was familiar with the difference in spelling. Those with eyes to see and ears to hear can see the differences in the spelling if they are taught those differences. So again, I relate this to the public education system that does not in fact teach you concise English and the proper use of punctuation to clarify the given name and the family name as separately distinct and different, and not in fact a legal name consisting of a first and last name in any order to describe particular different legal styles, or whether it be an uppercase and lowercase or a mix. Other work of forensic linguistics in the United States concerned the rights of individuals with regard to understanding their Miranda rights during the interrogation process. Okay, so in the interrogation process, again, they're going to ask you questions that they want you to admit yes or no to by using their tailored grammar. Okay? In these courts, I don't care if it's for a crime or for administration of a probate estate, they will use their tailored grammar. So when they question you, you have to be able to avoid that tailored grammar, yet give them a valid response so that when they're looking for information, you can give them what they're looking for as a mirror type image so that they see that one or the other is true and one is not. And this is called piercing the corporate veil, and I include it as piercing the political veil as well. I'm not a national. I was born unto the nation, so I don't take upon any of those at-law terms, even employee, jury, and sureties. The 1963 case of Ernesto Miranda was pivotal to the beginning of forensic linguistics field because, again, at law is where they use all the tailored grammar for all those different venues. And that's why it says in the Miranda rights, you have a right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. Now remember, recently we've been talking about a court of law or equity. So what happened in Miranda rights where they didn't mention the or equity? Because it wasn't in a court of equity. It was in a court of law. So they use their own grammar. And in using that their own grammar, they don't extend it to include or equity, folks. His case led to the creation of the Miranda rights and pushed the focus of forensic linguistics on witness questioning rather than police statements. So, again, when they questioned me and asked me to identify or give me what, can I see your identification? No, I don't have any. Well, what's your name? Well, I was given a name, Keith, and I hail from the family Little. Now, if they put it down there as first and last name, that would be on them because I didn't give them a first and last name. I specifically, in my grammar, told them it was a given name, not a first name. And I never mentioned anything about a last name either because I gave them a family name of which I hailed that they could call a surname. Same with the birth date and born. You have to understand the grammar and fix your grammar so that you can avoid their grammar. You have to learn about it. That means you have to go back and relearn what they didn't teach you. And the different grammar styles. You have to understand they're using the linguistics against you. Various cases came about that challenged whether or not suspects truly understood what their rights meant. According to the grammar, I don't have rights. I have an obligation, taking upon and a hold of the promise of immutable counsel, to seek in our Father which art in heaven the way to rightly divide the word of truth. That's my obligation, not a right. Leading to a distinction of coercive versus voluntary organizations, versus voluntary interrogations. See, when it becomes consensual interrogation, it's voluntary, and I have no problem with that, because I will show that their language may or may not be even coercive, but I will be able to show that they have linguistic gymnastics that they then turn around and use as enforcement. And therein lies the problem, because now you don't have voluntary agreement. Say, when you tell me I'm trespassed, I will walk across that parking lot with impunity because I know your fault. An early application for forensic linguistics in the United States was related to the status of trademarks as words or phrases in the language. One of the bigger cases involved fast food giant McDonald's, claiming it had originated the process of attaching unprotected words to the MC prefix, referred to as McWords, and was unhappy with Quality Inns International's intention of opening a chain of economy hotels to be called McSleep. So we see how emotional these people can get over this linguistics. Yet when you try to point it out to them in these courts, they say, oh no, that doesn't matter. The fuck it doesn't. I can show you 8 different styles that they used in the last court case, that trial that they had with me 8 years ago. 8 different styles of the name. And that means they were certainly using gymnastics in all of those documents. So let's get on to tonight's stream on employees, juries, and sureties. See, when I tell people that you can't convene a jury against me if you're requiring them to bring forth some kind of identification, I damn well fucking mean it. And I'm going to show you. As it goes to 5 U.S. Code 8101 definitions, as it goes to 5 U.S. Code is employees itself. The very first definition says employee means, and then it's got all these different subsections. Okay? This is their linguistic gymnastics, folks. Employee means a civil officer or employee in any branch of the government of the United States, including an officer or employee of an instrumentality wholly owned by the United States. Remember that copyright and trademark? See, McDonald's has to register that trademark with the United States. That means they pledged it to the United States, and now the United States owns it. Okay? So when you go down to McDonald's and you fill out an employee application, you just became an employee of an instrumentality known as McDonald's that pledged their trademark and copyright to the United States and now is wholly owned by the United States. And in order to get a job there, you must provide a social security number with a proper state ID. a government instrumentality. Okay? That is done by an individual rendering personal service to the United States for obligations and other securities of the United States by giving a signature on those, whether blank or specially or a special endorsement, restricted endorsement. Either way, it's a personal service to the United States through an obligation or other security of the United States by a wholly owned corporate entity or a government office or agency of that government. And if you're not any of those, then you don't qualify to be regulated by any of those laws. You are still on the private. However, the indoctrination of the public education system and the hospitals, both known as foundling institutions, military institutions, then sign you up for Social Security through the Health and Human Services, which is another military core of government. Or to service of civil officer or employee of the United States. Remember, all those receipts you get say U.S. debit. Without pay or for nominal pay. See, this is the nominal pay where they pay you for that jury duty. And that nominal pay as an individual rendering personal service in the duty of juries, you become a surety. How do you become a surety? Because you present the ID, showing that you are acting in an official capacity, willing to sign on as a jury member of an obligation or other security of the United States, binding the individual that is under testimony or as a defendant, or both actually, the plaintiff and the defendant, to the words in the documentation. And if you don't understand those linguistics, then how competent are you to be on any motherfucking jury? When a statute authorizes the acceptance or use of the service, receiver of service. See, this is that contract postal unit. It's presumption that you're the legal representative, the surety, and you're accepting service of process that is not due without pay or for nominal pay. There's no schedule for it. You sign up for it by registering to vote, by having an ID, by doing all those official things. An individual other than an independent contractor or an individual employed by an independent contractor employed on the Menominee Indian Reservation in Wisconsin in operations conducted under a statute relating to tribal timber and logging operations on that reservation. So evidently this reservation has a contract by statute under the Federal Acquisitions Regulations 48 CFR 52.212-5 that says contract terms and conditions required to implement statutes or executive orders - commercial items, commercial products for that very tribal timber and logging operation. So instead of using casinos, this particular tribe is using timber rights. An individual employed by the government of the District of Columbia, an individual appointed to a position on the office staff of a former president under Section 1B, an individual selected pursuant to Chapter 121 of Title 28, and serving as a petit or grand juror, and an individual who is a system member of the National Urban Search and Rescue Response System during a period of appointment into federal service pursuant to Section 327 of the Robert T. Stafford Disaster Relief and Emergency Assistance Act but does not include a commissioned officer, a member of Metropolitan Police or Fire Department of the District of Columbia, da-da-da-da. Okay? So let's look at 28, Chapter 121, Juries, Trial by Jury. Declaration of Policy. Declaration of Policy. Again, it is not law, folks. It is not law. And as you saw, it is the Washington, D.C. Police and Fire District or Fire Departments. See, that's District of Columbia Code. This is just transcribing the District of Columbia into the documentation of the United States as a corporate entity that then goes outside of its bounds, located in Washington, D.C., by special maritime territorial jurisdictions to spread its obligations and other securities by vessels of the United States. So what is Declaration of Policy? It is the policy of the United States, the corporate entity, that all litigants in federal courts entitled to trial by jury shall have the right to grand and petit juries selected at random from a fair cross-section of the community in the district or division wherein the court convenes. What is the district and what is the division? Is that the land? No, it can't be on the land. It's in the district or division. Just like in the state and in Washington, D.C. It's the goddamn documentation, folks. It is further the policy of the United States that all citizens shall have the opportunity to be considered for service on grand and petit juries. It is further the policy of the United States that all businesses shall have the opportunity to be considered for service on grand and petit juries in the district courts of the United States, not outside of them. So what are you doing all of that business outside of the district courts, folks? Do you see the legal gymnastics? It is further the policy of the United States that all businesses shall have the opportunity to be considered for service on grand and petit juries in the district courts of the United States. So what are you getting paid for on the business that you're doing outside of the district courts? Is that foreign territory? Is that falling within their special maritime territorial jurisdiction and you're still fulfilling the obligations and other securities of the United States as vessels of the United States? But you're just running around bumping into each other and getting receipts that say U.S. debit and not turning them into the proper authorities. You're just throwing them in the trash. You insolent fucks. And shall have an obligation to serve as jurors when summoned for that purpose. United States that all businesses for that purpose, and it must be a business purpose then. Does anybody have any problems with this? Please let me know in the comments. So let's look on to the next one, because this next one is going to be a doozy. This is the sureties and surety bonds, and we're only going to look at the definitions. And it's amazing that under sureties and surety bonds, you would be amazed to find out that there's only two definitions. Right here, 9301, under 31 U.S. Code, Chapter 93, money and finance. And when we look down here at 9310, it's individual sureties. If another applicable federal law or regulation permits the acceptance of a bond from a surety that is not subject to sections 9305 and 9306 and is based on a pledge of assets by the surety, the assets pledged by such surety shall consist of eligible obligations described under section 9303 and be submitted to official of the government required to approve or accept the bond, who shall deposit the obligations as described under section 9303B. That is an obligation of the United States if it says U.S. debit on that cash receipt, on that credit card receipt, on that debit card receipt. If it says U.S. debit, then it is evidence on that cash item that you're supposed to send it back to the proper official of the government required to approve or accept that bond, and that would be the United States Treasury for redemption or reissue of new securities, and that is the fiscal agent of the United States. So let's take a look at that definition. And it has two definitions. Persons means an individual, a trust, an estate, a partnership, and a corporation. So we have a corporation and a partnership with the state that is administrating an estate in trust for the individual who is the applicant. Eligible, notice how I read that backwards, folks. That setup that we're in goes exactly as plain writing says here. It is a corporation and a partnership with the state as the trustee of an estate being administrated by the state under a trust. Public service is a public trust for the individual so named by the applicant. 2. Eligible obligation means any security designated as acceptable in lieu of a surety bond by the Secretary of the Treasury. Everything I look at says it's supposed to go through the Treasury for redemption or reissue of a new security. Under Article 38 of the Labor Code, it says that the commanding officer shall cause receipts to be issued so the spoliated owner may obtain indemnity. That could be finished up with the finalizing portion of that statement as what is it? In lieu of surety bond. Indemnity in lieu of surety bond. Greetings, Iman. How you doing tonight, sister?
All is well. All is well.
Is this making sense? I mean, do I sound like an idiot?
No, it is making sense, brother, because every document that is, every instrumentality or document that is received to put information on to create a record, it's all copywritten already.
Yeah,
So
it's
it doesn't even belong, it doesn't belong to man or woman. It's already copywritten by the United States through the OPM.
right, and they have different bonded weights. It's all known as commercial paper. I have a King James Red Version Bible over here that shows the family registry. And when you pop that family registry out, it is on different weighted bond paper than that of the regular pages of the scriptures. Why do you suppose that is, folks? One paper is meant to last longer than the other.
And what you will notice, brother, is that when the paper lasts longer than the other, after time, it changes to a specific color. You know, it goes from the original color and then it fades to a different one.
Yeah, these pages are still white, but the fold out is actually colored. It's actually taken it's absorbed over time a color to it now. It's no longer white like it used to be. The pages of the Bible itself, though, still white. See, there's a difference in the paper even, and it has its different purposes, and therefore they have different values. And of course, it's because of various different things, the different grammars, for one. And we really have to start taking these kind of things into account, folks. And like I've said many times, coin your words or purse your lips. Isaiah 54, verse 17, no tongue shall prosper against you, and you shall condemn anybody that rises up in judgment. This is the inheritance of the servants of the Lord, and their righteousness is of me, saith the Lord. Therefore, you're supposed to use the Lord's words to rightly divide the word of truth, and that is, no tongue shall rise up against you, means you need to learn them all. So you can rise up against them. And this is what I'm talking about. This is why I don't care what you really have to say. If I say something about it, I'm not trying to say something detrimental or anything. I'm trying to do something kind in looking out for my brother, in helping them correct their words. Because I too, like I've said many times, folks, I used to be the fucking fool. I used to be the bitch ass slave. I understand now, and this is why I'm reaching out and trying to teach you that those public education schools are no good for you. They're indoctrinating your children, and you're happily taking up that convenience. I urge you to stop. That is the very detriment. And again, I correlate that to the book of Enoch, the actual first book of the scriptures, chapter 69, verses 8 through 11, where the angel Penemu, the very reason we have the term pen is because that angel is the one that taught man how to read and write. And that is the very downfall of man. That's why in Isaiah 54 it says that we're supposed to let no tongue prosper and rise up against those false judgments. We're supposed to do it with his words. We're supposed to recognize those differences. Go ahead, sister.
You know, brother, I have to love what we do. You know, yourself and my learning and what Malika do. I can't make this shit up. I just said about maybe 6 hours ago, I was talking about that verse in Enoch 69, and I was just talking about 54:17 and everything that you're talking about tonight. So it's just like divinely ordered
Synchronicity.
for for this message to come out. I yield, brother. Much love and peace.
Absolutely. And that's the only message I'm trying to put out. And you know, it's funny, the people that would try to slander me and defame me and use all these ad hominems, when that's what I'm trying to teach them. Those ad hominems aren't anything. You think I'm going to let you call me names bother me? I'm fucking going on 60 years old, for crying out loud. I learned about sticks and stones may break my bones and words may never hurt me long time ago. I've been raising my finger and telling people you ain't my daddy, fuck off, a long time. But just because I've been doing that doesn't mean I don't know anything. Doesn't mean I'm just being belligerent. My mom used to say, Keith, you always think you got to be right. No, Mom. I just don't want to run around running my mouth like everybody else and sound like an idiot like they do. I've been recognizing how people babble a long time. I've been seeing how they rightly divide themselves from their actions. They say one thing and do another. That's why I've been fingering them all my life and telling them you ain't my daddy. I see how you act versus what you say. You think I'm gonna follow you? You ain't no better than my fucking daddy. False patronymical, making a big scene about bowing down or kneeling down instead of raising themselves up and pledging to the flag. Come on. That's the very first thing you should understand about those scriptures. There is no Father but the one in heaven. And yet here we are, 2024, making an issue about somebody bowing down instead of pledging allegiance to a flag. And then on top of it, because of his skin color, they're going to make it a racial issue. How fucking ignorant. Ad hominem, ad hominem. Maybe go back and watch Roots again. You know, when they tried to force Kunta Kinte to take upon the name Toby, that's not his name. It wasn't his grammar. Of course not. You fucking babbling idiots. Of course I'm upset. You should be too. You should be upset at yourself. You should be able to call yourself a fucking fool and a bitch-ass slave for sending your own children to that fucking public education system because you didn't learn about it your own self and you went through it. Just like hogs going through a fucking stile. You know, that's what they call them. They run them through these lines to a pit area where they can turn around and kill them. Cows and pigs and all that. Yeah, they call them stiles. You're living your life in fear style. You're going right down another brick in the wall. You're following this, all the other students. Pathetic. Anyway, we come to the end of the stream for tonight. I hope everybody understands you really need to learn how to rightly divide the word of truth, because otherwise they're going to use everything you say and do against you in a court of law. I urge you to come out of her and learn about equity. And this is the funny thing, you know, I get on them about this affirmative action stuff because they're including all these gays and transgenders and women and colored folk in this diversity, equity, and inclusion because they're the downtrodden ones, right? They're the ones that have had their rights violated and stuff, right? So we have this outrage against diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's time to flip the tables. Use the diversity, equity, and inclusion to include yourself at the higher level. Before I formed thee in the belly, I knew thee. Before thou was cast from the womb, I sanctified thee. I ordained thee a prophet unto the nations, so that you could distinctly go out and minister my gospel, rightly dividing the word of truth that is besieging these nations and making slaves out of their own people. Fucking babbling idiots. Yes. Brian Parker says, good night all. Don't cut line to the stall. Don't cut line. Don't be in a hurry. Have patience. Do your research. Learn how to use that. That bond is a beautiful thing in lieu of surety. In lieu of surety. Eligible obligation means a security designated as acceptable in lieu of a surety bond by the Secretary of the Treasury for presentation to the Secretary of the Treasury of the United States Treasury, fiscal agent of the United States, for redemption or reissue of new security by grantor, settlor, benefactor, directive in full acquittance and discharge, so that no person shall be held liable in any court for equal consideration and equal benefit. Equity acts in personam. You have to create the bond. Anyway, with that, we are at the end of our stream. What do you got on the way out, sister?
Well, Well, brother, it is what it is. I'm not in nobody turnstile. If I am, that's the most high turnstile, and it's gonna be what it is. It is what it is.
Absolutely, absolutely. In the meantime, I've been given this immutable promise to seek counsel in my Father, and so if you want to call me a snitch, go right ahead, because that's who I'm snitching to.
We both snitching to the Most High God. Yep, first and foremost.
Absolutely. All right, and with that, folks, you know me. I love you, but I don't give a rat's ass whether you love me back. That's to say, I don't care if you hate me. I don't care if you don't respect me. That's on you. So may God bless you, and have a good night. Later, everybody.